raised in fire, always in flame, unseen by the world, a child with no name, a wish to be wanted, a hope to belong, but silenced again by violent blows. Then CASA calls out, you are not alone. They offer a hand and a place to call home. One caring adult can change a young life. The child finds hope and the freedom to smile.
Welcome to the CASA of Red River podcast. My name is Jason, and this is our very first episode. This introduction is going to run a little longer than what you'll normally hear, and that's for good reason. About halfway through recording with James, we ran into a technical issue where the primary audio cut out. Fortunately, I always bring a backup recording device, so we didn't lose the conversation altogether. However, around the 20-minute mark, you will notice a change in sound quality as we switch over to that secondary recording. You may also hear an occasional clicking sound, which is just a bit of static hitting the microphone from time to time. I believe I have a solution for that going forward. Now, this episode is very different from the ones that will follow because this one really serves as a foundation or a primer for CASA volunteering. If you're listening to this because you've been curious about becoming a CASA, or if you're someone who is already a CASA and you've had people ask you how to get involved or what is involved, this is the episode you can share. It walks through the basics from how to volunteer and sign up to the requirements and training, to being sworn in by the court, getting your first case, and everything that happens after that. There's a lot of information packed into this one. If you find value in this podcast, and I believe you will, please share it. Share it with someone who has asked you about CASA. Share it with someone who may be looking for a way to be of service. This might be exactly what they've been searching for. In this first episode, we're fortunate to have James Bodling, the executive director of CASA of Red River, sit with me and talk about CASA from beginning to end. Everything you could possibly need to know, James knows, and he shares it with us. So like and subscribe so you can follow along as we continue this journey. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy this episode. I guess we'll start off with who you are and what you do for CASA.
Okay, I'm James Bodling. I'm the executive director for CASA, and a little bit about what I do. I do a little bit of everything regarding our program.
One of the things that came up when I was talking to some of the others that'll follow this was what it takes to be a CASA, because I found that a lot of times when I was talking to CASA volunteers, CASA workers, we kind of skip right over that because we've all been here and we've been doing either the volunteering or the working or the board membering. And it occurred to me we needed something that told people if they wanted to become a CASA, how does that happen? How does that happen?
Okay. It just takes people in the community like you and I that have the heart and passion to work with children, to make sure that the children gets everything they need.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to come down to CASA, or where's the best way to apply? How do you apply? Do you come to the office? Do you send in an email?
All the above. They can give us a call. They can come by in person. They can find us on the web and submit an inquiry. It all gets here. We respond out to that person. If it's by email, then we'll respond by email to that person. And then we usually talk to them and invite them to an information meeting. Gives them the chance to ask all the questions, everything about what our program's about, what the commitment level is, answer any questions they may have. And then give them an opportunity then to think about if they want to, because it is a commitment. It's 12 months. So it gives them the opportunity to think about it and talk to family members, pray about it, and then come back if they want to come back. Then we do a short little interview, just kind of get to know a little bit about them volunteering, before experiences and work with children. Kind of gets us a little bit of background information on them. And then we get them all signed up to start our class.
So one way or another, walking in through the front door or sending an email in saying that you would like information about becoming a CASA and volunteering, then that generates CASA reaching out to that person. And would it be typically, would you respond by both email and a phone call, or one or the other?
We respond to both.
Oh, okay.
Either way. And if they come in and we're available, we'll meet with them right then. They
Yeah.
come in and just sit down and talk to them and do basically the information meeting we cover. Just
Yeah.
talk about our program, what all's required, what all the things that they would be expected to do, things like that.
How often is there an information meeting?
We usually try to hold 2 in between our trainings. We have trainings every other month, and then we try to do 2 in between there. And then we also do individuals. If, like I say, if individual just showed up, we would just bring them down and talk to them.
How long is that information meeting?
If you have 1 or 2 people there, it usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are there handouts? Are there things that you give them to take home with them? Or?
Right. There's a little bit of everything on that. We do show a couple of videos that explains our program, what the volunteer does, the type of children we work with. Then we do hear from some CASA volunteers that have done this in the past and how the impact is made on them and their lives just by volunteering.
Right.
So we show those 2 videos. Then we have a packet of when our class dates are usually scheduled, and we go over the requirements. We may show them a little bit on our website where to go and submit an application. They always have to submit an application, whether they come here in person or just call. They still have to go and submit.
Right. So, say given that somebody has done that, they've sent in the application. What are the requirements? I guess what I'm getting at, do they have to be a certain kind of person? You know what I mean? Like, It's like, oh, well, we only take doctors and lawyers.
No, absolutely. I mean, we do check out several requirements that are got to be met. They got to be 21 years old.
Okay.
We tell them they have to be able to pass a background check, both CPS, DFPS, and a driving record. Those are just basically to create a safe environment around their kids.
Right.
Then we do tell them once they become a CASA volunteer, they do have to continue their education with 12 hours annually, that they have to do some type of training or something. And we're pretty easy on that. It's just that it has to be done. And we got to have it logged in so that we can get credit for it. And we will usually do that short interview we mentioned earlier. It's just to get to know you, how you are around the kids. Have you volunteered before? Have you worked with kids before? What do those things look like? And that usually comes through the interview.
Yeah.
And that usually leads into getting into the training.
So anyone can become a CASA, given that you can meet some minimum requirements. I mean, particularly the 21 years old, the background checks. Oh, you have to be fingerprinted.
Yes. We do the DPS, background checks, where you get your fingerprint scanned and it checks for your criminal history and sends us a report back.
Right.
We submit the volunteer's name to CPS, and they do a background check and see if it's cleared or not.
So that hits all the beginning bits, I think, that anybody would want to know. Like, you don't have to have a certain educational level, that sort of thing. The bottom line is you just have to have a heart for kids.
Right. And that's what our court wants to know. They want to have an unbiased opinion about what's going on with our kids.
Right.
And somebody that can provide what's in the best interest. And somebody volunteering their time is the best way of doing that. No one's getting paid for it. No one's getting compensation for it. These are volunteers who takes their time out of their day to spend time with their child, get to know them very well, so they can go into court and recommend what's really, truly in their best interest.
Right. Speaking of time, then you got training. Like, there is an actual coming into the office and sitting in here and doing training. So what's the commitment training-wise?
Well, it's we say it's 30 hours. We usually do 6 sessions in the office, and it's usually about 3 hours. And then there's some reading, a little bit of homework in between the classes. We usually get a lot of our volunteers introduced to our software that we use, and we usually have them go and try to do a contact in that software. So get them comfortable and get them used to using our software, so when they are started, and that's not so much of a problem. So there is it usually totals about 30 hours. And then once they complete that, we will want them to observe at least 1 hour of court.
Oh, yeah. The 30 hours, that is spread over 6 weeks?
No.
What is it?
It's about 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
We hold class twice a week, 3 hours. And it's usually 2 and 2.5. It really depends on what subject is covered during that time. So it's 3 weeks. And then there is some reading in between. They do read some case scenarios. And like I said, they do follow like a mock case where they would actually do contacts and a court report based off that mock case.
Okay, so over 3 weeks, you go to class twice in a week.
Twice a week, yeah.
And what time do those usually start? 6, 7?
Yeah, the last ones have usually been Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6 to 9.
Oh, okay.
And people usually get out about 8, 8:30. Really depends on. We build in the 9 just in case it goes that far, but usually our smaller classes don't take very long.
Okay, so that's 6 a week, 3 weeks. That's 18. Where's the other? Where's the rest of the time?
There's reading in between classes. You read case lessons and case scenarios, and there is some actually working in our Optima system.
Oh, okay.
That's in between classes too.
It's the 2 days a week. Say right now, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 hours each, and in between, then you're going to be doing online.
Yeah, there's some online things that need to be done.
Right.
There's a mock case they follow, so they will read some case scenarios from that, and then they'll do some data entry into our software also.
Yeah, and you get credit for time for that.
Yeah.
So the scheduled time is like 18 hours. The remainder of that is made up. You're taking that up in your own time.
Right. In between, homework.
Yeah. Okay. So you do all the training, you get to 30 hours clocked, and then I guess after that you go to court?
Yes. Toward the end of after the last class is scheduled, there will be a court date that's set up where the volunteers will go before the judge. They get sworn in. They take an oath, and at that point they are completed everything to be a court-appointed special advocate or a CASA.
Right.
And then usually what they do is they'll sit there. We schedule those on a day there's court hearings, and they'll get to sit and observe court hearings, which meets the other requirement. So they actually see a real court hearing going on.
I remember mine. My first year was 2012 when I went to go get sworn in as a CASA. We were sworn in, and then we sat back and we watched the case that they had scheduled for that day.
Right.
And I was actually, I guess, I consider one of the lucky ones, because that day there was a woman that was in court to be reunited with her child.
Oh.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was told, and it since learned, that was a rarity to be there when a woman actually, she went through the whole system, did all the things they told her to, did the CPS went by and did their check-ins, and she did her parenting classes and went to the therapies. I mean, this lady checked off every box and was actually, that day was there for the judge to determine whether or not she'd be reunited with her child, and she was. And I was like, well, this is great. And I walked down there like, well, that doesn't happen all the time, so buckle up, and I was like, okay, but that was really great. And it's like, anyway, yeah, so
it could be anything on the docket that day. They can see adoption, they can see reunification, they can see an adversary hearing.
Yeah.
Most of the court hearings that they will observe will be checking on the progress of how the case is going.
Right. And then the next step is getting assigned a case.
Right. Yeah. Well, during their training, they do a survey to observe what type of child you want to work with. Because we have some volunteers that are terrified of teenagers, some are terrified of toddlers.
Right.
So we just ask them to kind of envision what type of child they want to work with. So it really depends on the parameters they want to set the case by.
Right.
And then our program director will review cases that don't have volunteers assigned or new cases that come in and look at the potential volunteers and what they put down.
Right.
And what we do is we reach out and if we have more than one case, we'll send them several cases to review. And the volunteer or the potential volunteer gets to read it and see if it kind of speaks to their heart. If they know it, if they read it, if they want that case. The other way, they know if they read something that they're not comfortable with, they don't want that case, which is fine. We'll find another case for them.
That one is that's a big deal to me, because I didn't really get that at first when I started, was you actually get to say, okay, I can't handle that.
Right, and we know some of our volunteers may come from experiences in the past that may trigger some things, and we don't want to bring that up again. Especially if it's unresolved issues. We don't want to do that. So we want to give them the opportunity to review the case before they accept it, so they know what they're really getting into. The other side of that is we want our volunteers to have a good experience, because if they have a good experience, get to see the case they wanted, choose the case, get to work with the type of kids they want to work with, they'll want to continue to volunteer for CASA. So that's the incentive of wanting to have a good experience with their volunteers. There
isn't a typical case that a new CASA would get.
No, it's not just we don't just give them the first case that comes up.
Right.
Now it only depends on what's available. And there's a lot of variables that play into that. Are the kids here in Wichita Falls, or are they 3 hours away in Dallas? Plays a huge part, because some of our volunteers don't mind traveling. Some of them don't want to travel.
Yeah, that brings up a good point that I would have kicked myself if I had forgotten to talk about, was the fact that a volunteer may volunteer at CASA Red River in Wichita Falls, and this office covers the four counties, which are
Wichita, Archer, Clay, and Montague.
There you go. I knew I would fumble all over the place trying to remember those. But even then, your child moves very often in foster care. They're in the system. Once they're in the system, a child may be moved from one place to another. Say they have a foster home in Wichita Falls, that's just terrific. I mean, frankly, those are my favorite. They're everyone's favorite, because when I had a case that was in Wichita Falls and the kid's foster care was in Wichita Falls, it meant I could pick them up every Friday at school.
Exactly.
And that was great. And I mean, you can make some real deep connections and bonding with the kid, that they know that you've got their back when every Friday you show up to pick them up from school. But they don't always stay in Wichita Falls. They can get moved. Something can happen that means that now, rather than be in Wichita Falls, they're moved to Flower Mound or to Fort Worth, or Tyler, or depending on what happens, they could even get shot down to Houston, and that's a reality. Now, the requirements for a volunteer when it comes to seeing and visiting with your child varies depending upon the distance.
Right. Yeah. If they're here in Wichita Falls, we want them to see a minimum of every month. If they see them every week, that's great. That even increases the rapport with the volunteer and the child. As our children are placed further away, the frequency of seeing them face to face is less. However, every month, if we still ask them to either make a phone call, see them on Zoom, something that they can still have a conversation with that child. And we understand that not being face-to-face is always going to be a barrier when our children are placed far away. But, that's just the reality of what we're dealing with. And we have about half our kids are placed at least an hour away.
Yeah. I guess the saving grace there is that it's, first of all, if they're local, it's once a month. If the child moves somewhere that's much, much further, I say Houston only because I had a couple of that were in Houston. In those cases, it's once every 3 months, but you want to make contact with them every month. You can do that, though. You can do that with a phone. We got this.
Now every 6 months.
Oh, it's now 6 months?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Once every 6 months, you got to reach out, go down and see them.
Yeah, so
face to face.
Be in the same room with them, but you could still make those connections. We got Zoom now.
We have Zoom, we have texting, we have phone calls.
There's so many ways that you can make those connections.
There's a lot of different ways you can still connect, and we have some volunteers that don't mind traveling.
I know.
They say, "Hey, I'm down that way every other month anyway," so it works out sometimes for some of our volunteers to take those types of cases. Now, typically what we have here locally are very young children, newborn to toddler age, and then our older kids, our teenagers, are usually placed out of the area. They're the ones that are not here. So we get a problem when there's a volunteer who wants to have that interaction with the older child, but they want to do it here. So it's kind of like a Tetris puzzle. We're trying to match up demographics with what the volunteer wants and trying to make that work.
Yeah, that again goes back to the volunteer. I think that sometimes in our minds we could consider volunteer work like work, like when you go to work. So it's like, hey, can I have tomorrow off? There's some kind of pushing or pulling. In the case of CASA and volunteering with CASA, it's always trying to balance what you can do, what you want to do, and what you're able to do with the child that you get. You know what I mean? So we don't ever want to feel like we've got a volunteer up against a wall. It's going, well, now what am I going to do? I was just thinking this age doesn't matter either. 21 and up, way up, keep on trucking. We have some folks of all ages. So maybe if you're in your, late 70s or something, and the idea of driving all the way to Houston is not something that you can do, or maybe you're not comfortable with a 14-year-old that has outbursts, things like that.
We do our best to fit what our volunteers want, and sometimes that works. Sometimes we have to compromise a little bit and make that, figure out something for that volunteer. But we work with them.
Yeah.
One thing that you mentioned earlier, I wanted to expand on. You talked about our children moving from foster home to foster home, and that just goes to describe the instability that is in foster care with our children that we work with, and the quickness that they can move from one place to another. A lot of our foster children, they don't know where they're going to lay their head tonight because they may be moved before the day's over. But that brings us to our CASA volunteers that are consistent. They stay on the case from beginning to end, and they stay involved with that child wherever they are, so that it does provide the one consistency in that child's life during foster care. If they are changing caseworkers or if they're changing foster homes, the one thing that won't change, or hopefully won't change, will be that CASA volunteer visiting with that child and being dependable, like you said earlier, that they will be going wherever that child goes and to see them and keep that rapport. Mm-hmm. And you also will be supported by a CASA supervisor.
Oh yeah.
Some of our volunteers, they go on out of the country for a couple of weeks. They go on trips, cruises, where they're going to be out of the country or out of the area for a while. And so our CASA supervisors, they step in. They'll do the court hearing or do the meeting or go see the child, whatever they need to in the absence of the volunteer, whether it's temporary or whatever. They will fill in wherever they're not able to get to. And they help support, how the case is going, what's kind of the next steps.
Which is really great. That's nice to have. That way you don't ever have that break. And, okay, so it wasn't me on Friday, but my CASA supervisor went by. And so on Friday, he still saw someone. Yeah. That's a big deal, too. Can you have more than one case at a time?
You can. If you show the confidence you can handle, if you have the time, you kind of figured out how we do things here, your role as a CASA volunteer, we definitely can get you more than one case. Usually being a new volunteer, we encourage, let's get through the new one first,
right?
Or at least halfway through the new one, because some of them will ask to take on more. Some of our volunteers, we just hand them the paperwork, they know what to do. But yeah, we do have volunteers that take more than one case.
Now you're going to see a child at least a minimum of once a month. They're local.
Yeah.
And then at least a face-to-face every 6 months if they're not. How far does that, what is not local? What does that mean?
Well, you're going to test my memory here, but local is within 60 miles.
Oh, okay.
And then 60 to 120 is every other month. And then 120 to 299, I think, is every quarter. And then over 300 is every 6 months. That you have to see the child face to face.
Right.
Now, you see them every month in between there, but by other means.
Yeah.
And that's just a minimum. If you feel like you need to see that child more often to build that relationship, we'll support that.
Right. When you go to your CASA kid's house or their placement and you're going to spend that time, is 30 minutes enough? I mean, that doesn't seem like enough time to me to be able to, get to know anyone, much less a kid. But then is it, you have to stay an hour? Is that a thing?
There's no set time. It's just basically what you're comfortable with. We want you to go into where the child lives to assess how the place is. Does the child seem safe there? You might check where the child sleeps. That's always really good to see. That we kind of see their room and things like that. And it's just basically, when you get into like a monitor returns where you kind of start wanting to make sure that they have all the necessities. Because sometimes our families, they will lose their utilities, things like that. But, and it's also good to have some time away from the placement. Go get a Coke or go get ice cream or something. Take the child with you. So ask them, because a child will tell you more likely what's going really on in that home when they're not in that home.
Right.
So that, you may really get a true feedback from the child on how they feel if they are in that placement.
Yeah. I think that going to see the child wherever they are, it's important to be regular enough so the child knows that you're coming and that they can count on you, but irregular enough so that the foster parents or the whatever don't know you're coming.
Right.
Because abuse doesn't just stop once they get to the system. Sometimes it carries on.
Exactly.
And being alert and aware of that is really vital. Of all the cases that I had, we had 2 foster homes shut down that my kids were in. That those people were investigated and then shut down, and their license, is it a license that they get to be foster parents?
Yeah, they do trainings and get certified to be licensed foster families.
Isn't it amazing that somebody would go through all that and get licensed so they can be a foster home and then carry on child abuse?
That happens.
It's bananas. It's a rarity. But I mean, I did it 7 years in many, many, many cases and only had 2. But that struck me. Whoa. That was
still gotta check on.
Yes, and the only way you'll find out about that is by taking your child out with you to go to
see them at school and
absolutely,
go to different events they may be at, just to run into them, see how they're doing.
Yeah,
those are you get more true interaction with them then.
Yeah, oftentimes we'll talk without thinking, and that's when you get maybe we need to.
You have that child in the car and you're going to get ice cream, you're just chit-chatting, and they may bring up something that, doesn't sound right to you.
Yeah, maybe to them it was kind of benign because they're coming from a place that is so wrecked in their own life that the next step, even though it's not good, is better than where they came from.
Right.
And so you can pick up on things and go, okay, what's that about? Maybe we can look into that.
Well, you said earlier when you're collecting information, we use the term gather information in our training because it's basically what you do is when you talk to everybody else in a child's life, you're gathering information, bits and pieces here and there, put it all together so when you go to court, you can say, this is what's in the best interest of this child.
Yeah.
And I will, 9 times out of 10, our children will always want to go back home no matter what the situation is because it's what they know is normal to them.
Yep.
Even though it may not be normal. And it's just what they know. And they're thrown into a different situation and they want to go back to what's normal to them.
Yeah. Going to court. That's one of the things that CASAs do as well. So it's not only the kind of feel-good pictures where, you see a guy walking along, he's got a foster kid that's grinning and skipping and, ice cream and butterflies. But you also go to court, and court is one of those things that you don't see in the posters a lot of times, or the things that get people's heartstrings pulled. But it's also one of the most vital parts, and depending on your outlook, can be one of the most interesting. Kind of like you can get fired up about it. Because
absolutely,
that's the place where you're going to go into the courtroom, and it's going to be for whatever reason. And you get to say what the kid couldn't say,
right? Because
saying what is real, saying what is honest, might get you hit, And then, and you may not have been around mom or dad for 6 or 9 months because of everyone stepping in to help you out, but you're still afraid of them, even in that room. So that child doesn't go to the courtroom, you do, and you get to stand there and stare dad right in the eyes and. Let them know what's up.
Well, and that's becoming a child advocate. That's the best part of advocating. That's where the most important part of advocating comes from, is in the courtroom, because you are the extra set of eyes for the judge, the court, and you get to share with the court about what is going on with that child. The judge will ask you questions, and how's the child doing in placement? How's the child doing with this? Is there anything the child needs? Mm-hmm. And that's your opportunity to advocate, whatever that might be. Maybe they need to have visits with their pet they haven't seen in months.
Right.
The court wants to hear about that. They can make that happen. Does a child have a favorite toy that they've been wanting? If it's possible, let's see if we can get that stuffed animal or toy to them where they can, the court's eyes on this is the child didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
The parents did. But at the end of the day, the parents get to go back home and pick up and do whatever they want to do. The child's one that's removed from their comfortable environment. They have to go to a different place. They have to learn different rules, different routines with different people. And it's the child that has to suffer in all this. Mm-hmm. And so if there's something that can make this child a little bit easier, stuffed toy, seeing their pet, the court wants them to see that happen. And these are parts and ways that a CASA volunteer can advocate.
Yeah. Court can be scary.
They can.
I tell you what, the first time I went to court, I was getting, I felt grilled. I know it wasn't now, but at the time it felt like I was getting grilled by the mother's attorney. And it really ticked me off, right? I mean, you could just tell it. I immediately kind of flushed and went into the fight or flight. And it was all fight.
It does make you feel that way. If you're not comfortable testifying in court, it's a learning curve.
Yeah, you take a couple of times. Yeah.
And I will tell you, in the beginning, if you're on the case in the very beginning, you'll kind of you're kind of wading into a pool. The judge will ask you some questions on how things are going, and you kind of get up in front of the court and stand up and give your personal opinion and talk about what you feel is in the best interest of the child. Then as the case goes on, if there's discrepancies, then you may be called to testify. Maybe they even needed to correct something that was said in court. And that gets a little bit more intense. Mm-hmm. And maybe the goal of the case changes where they're going to terminate parental rights. Well, you may be called to the stand to testify what's in the best interest of that child. You may have to say, yes, it's in the best interest to terminate parental rights.
That was mine.
That's tough. That's very tough. Because we never want to see a relationship ended that way. But, sometimes it's in the best interest.
Yeah, in that case, it was. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything.
Absolutely.
There was no fixing that mom. I think one of the things that I took away from, that surprised me, actually, I don't know that because it's been so long, I don't remember the training specifically, or when the light bulbs went off, for different things. But one of them that struck me was the CASA volunteer is the most important person in that child's legally in their life. So, for instance, the parents don't have more say than you do. The courts, everybody the judge puts you in a place where you're at the top of the heap. So if something's going to happen, they're going to listen to you. You take that, you slide into that position that the parents are given naturally and you're given legally. So that, like, for instance, you go to a placement or something and you walk up, like I said, show up randomly. And they go, well, you can't see Mikey. I go, yeah, I can. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can. So there's no not seeing. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen. So that was something that was really important to me, was that when I want to go see the child that I have his case, that I'm going to go see them. That's and it's important to be, I think, be a little courageous in that volunteering too, because this isn't a passive thing,
Yeah, and the unique thing about a CASA role, CASA volunteer role, is that you talk to all these different folks. They rarely talk to each other that much. But
Right.
You're the one that talks to placement. You get to talk to the caseworker, talk to the teachers, counselors. You get to talk to grandma. You get to talk to their attorney at LIDM. You are the network that talks to all these folks that have a little piece of interest in this child.
Yeah.
And that's the neat part of being a CASA volunteer.
Yeah, it's such a remarkable position to be in a child's life. It is so unique in that it's not a job. Again, you said it. I say it all the time. It's not a job, not getting paid by anyone. You have no one's interest but the child's interest. What the court wants, what the parents want, what To Engage wants, what the state. It doesn't. That's not your.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. The whole purpose of the CASA volunteer is to sit there and collect all of that information. I took one of my kids to a attorney's office one time and sat in there with them, and you're just collecting all this information. I went to a therapy session with the parents one time, and you're collecting all that information and all of it to make sure that the child that you're assigned gets exactly what they need and gets the best out of the situation that they were pushed into. They didn't want to be, first of all, abused in any sense. They
didn't ask for it.
They didn't ask for any of that. And then when they're taken away from the place that, whether it's toxic or not, is a place that they recognize, that's just terrible too. And then you're thrown into being uncomfortable around people and, unsure of yourself comes pouring out when you show up to a house you've never been to. You don't know these people, but the state says, this is good. And settle up here, and there's 4 other kids in there. Now there's 5 of you in one room. What, if any, interactions would a CASA volunteer have with CPS? Like, the building, the CPS worker on your case. Are you going to have conversations?
Sure. I mean, the CPS caseworkers, which we call To Engage now, they are the contractors that are providing the same services as CPS. They are contracted to meet the child's needs and provide services to the parents. So there is some type of interaction with the CASA volunteer with To Engage workers to ask about progress. How are the parents doing in their classes? Are they completing, getting near into counseling, things that they're set up for to make those lifestyle changes. Also, CASA volunteer may have the opportunity to go over to the To Engage office here locally and observe a visit. If the parents are visiting their kids, you would want to know how they interact together, how the child acts, maybe before and after the visit, and as well as during the visit. Those are really important keys when you're advocating, so that because there can be some cues here and there that may make you feel kind of like there's a hesitancy there. Or you can advocate the other way too, and say that they do very well. They're very well bonded. They are very attentive to the child. The child obviously loves their parent. I mean, you can show both ways as an advocate, and it shows your bias as well. You show the positives as well as the negatives.
Right.
But those are opportunities that allows them, and you would check in with the workers monthly to get updates. How are they doing this month? Or if drugs are an issue, are they drug screening? What are the results? How's that going? Things like that.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about a case ending. We do want them to end in permanency. So what that means is preferably that the parents would get their act together so that the child can return to them and be a safe place. In the event that doesn't happen, then we start looking at relatives as a second option and still be with family and have that connection. That's the second thing we like to have. Thirdly, if there are no relatives and the family isn't making those lifestyle changes, then we got to seek some other alternative permanent placement for that child. And unfortunately, that's adoption. So sometimes we will find a permanent place that will be willing to adopt that child. So those are usually your most outcomes from a case. When we start looking at the case winding down, let's say the child's returned to the parents, that starts a monitoring period of 6 months. So somewhere during that 6 months, we're going to start asking the volunteer, how was your experience? You feel like you want to take on another case? And we usually start talking about a case around then. So by the time this is winding down, they may be assigned another case before this one ends, so they can kind of just jump on something new. Because usually when a child is back home with their parents, you're just kind of riding the time. You go and do your checks and visit the child, but there's not much more to do on the case when you're doing that. So taking on another case is a good time right then.
So a CASA volunteer may see their case end either by reuniting with the family, being returned to their family, adoption, or they can age out.
They can, yes.
So in the case of aging out, there's a lot that a child in foster care who ages out there are opportunities afterwards, like for instance college and
there are, yeah.
Yeah, things like that they can take advantage of. But they age out, then you're no longer their CASA. So your case ends by virtue of their turning 18 and aging out.
Even though the case may end, the relationship may continue.
Yeah.
Just not as a CASA standard. There's a lot of lifelong relationships that are built through CASA.
Yeah.
That continue even after the legal case is over.
Yeah.
Whether that child may have aged out or found permanency a different route. Yeah.
So we've got the ways that people can, the cases can end. And then there's one way that I would assume is extremely rare, but a CASA could just bail. Is that a thing?
It does. And we realize life happens with our CASA volunteers. It's a disappointment to the child. We don't want that. We want to minimize that as much as possible. Just not want to see your kids anymore is very detrimental because that's what they're used to seeing. They meet somebody and they don't follow through. CASA being there every time they say they're going to be there is how we build that reputation of advocating for giving a voice to the children that don't have a voice in court.
Right. I think we've covered everything. Right? I mean, I can't think of anything we haven't.
I believe so.
It splinters off into so many different ways, and it's never the same. It's always a challenge. It's inevitably rewarding. It's not easy. It's not a walk.
You hit all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's worth every minute you spend. Every minute that you spend with those kids. Big deal to me is I don't think there's anything more precious that has just more valuable than a child that gives you their faith.
Right.
And when you can go to visit, a CASA kid and in time earn that faith, that's just the greatest.
They can count on you.
Yeah.
They can't count on their own parents, but they can count on you.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're making a difference in a child's life. Whether that child goes back home or not, that we create a situation where that child will look for something better and will not settle for anything less than better than they can better themselves. And sometimes we're trying to help families break that generation after generation. How do you stop that cycle? Whether it may be mental health, drugs, or living situations, it seems to always go to the next generation.
Well, we've covered everything we can cover. Again, we could tell lots of stories, but this was great. I think it's going to be really important for people to be able to hear how to get into CASA, what it takes, what's required. See that anybody with a heart for kids can find a place
Exactly.
at CASA and make monumental differences in a child's life, and you're changing the future when you're changing the life of a child. Let's hope that works that way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the inspiring stories.
Thank you for listening to the first episode of the CASA Red River podcast. There is certainly more to come. We already have additional interviews recorded, and those will be released as future episodes, so please stick around as those are posted. A special thank you to James for taking the time out to be a part of this conversation. Future episodes will be shorter, around 30 minutes or less, but this one, well, it was important to cover as much information as possible. If you're interested in volunteering for CASA, please visit casawf.org. That's CASAWF.org, or reach out to our office in Wichita Falls for more information. If you found value in this episode, please like and subscribe, and most importantly, share it with someone who might be looking for a way to make a difference. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.